One of the things that we like to do in our episodes is talk about a trending topic. And
Yeah.
today, our trending topic is narcissism. So, I'm praying this episode will hit the headlines in the morning, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I'm glad we get to hear from a clinician about this topic. So,
Yeah.
take us in whatever direction you want to take us into with this topic, and tell us what is narcissism.
Yeah. Oh, such a big question.
Hmm.
Narcissism is a tricky conversation because it is one of the things that is rarely studied. The narcissist isn't, they're usually very high functioning, very smart individuals. So they aren't the ones that end up in like the mental hospitals so that we can actually study them and have information. And so when we look at like the DSM, narcissism is one of the most like the littlest amount of research within our diagnosis. And so when I'm sitting here hearing about narcissism, where my head and my heart goes is the process of diagnosis, is assessment.
Hmm.
Is for everybody listening, narcissism, we all have the opportunity to be a narcissist. Narcissists are not born, they're made.
Hmm.
They tend to be individuals. And right now, I read a study that it's usually 80% men, 20% women, but I think that's more cultural. If a woman tends to be a little narcissistic, our society's like, ooh, and calls her bad names and kind of sets her down. So she learns really quickly not to behave that way. Men, on the other hand, become CEOs and professionals and run companies.
Hmm.
So anyway, I'm not going to nerd out with that, but so there's a, I'm going to say he if I use a pronoun because statistically that's what it is. More of our husbands will come in with this, but they are not born, they're made, and the environment in which they are made in is an environment that is hypercritical. So it tends to be like the father or the mother that really just cares about performance and appearance. They're the athletes that the parents show up to all of the games, cheer them on. They have the best of the best, right? The best
Hmm.
cleats, like the best grades, like they're the president of their class because mom's over there running the PTO and really cares about what that looks like. And so really like cares about that, really critical about mistakes. And then there's this other part that's like enabling, that like notices all the defectiveness.
Hmm.
So noticing that that's the mistake part. They can't make mistakes. With this part that like oftentimes there's also the parent or some kind of dynamic that makes them feel like they're God's gift to the world. So it's oftentimes this hypercritical parent that's really intense, and then this other parent that's just like, oh, little one, but you're the best one, like you're going to run the world one day, I believe in you, while they're told that they're a piece of crap here. And so it's this environment where they think they're like grandiose, right? Like they're the best gift, like, oh, no one's realized that there is gold inside of me, no one's seen it yet, like that part of them. Well, there's this other part of them that really feels like I'm defective. That is what it is. What it looks like is a pain in the butt. The person that makes it all about themselves, that is intimidating, that doesn't listen, that has no empathy, that could care less, because what happens is they have no like object permanency, which means like no mirror inside of themselves. It is all about them. There's no mirror of what's happening inside of you. Because even right now, Matthew, I see you take a deep breath. I watch you clap your hands. Narcissists wouldn't have even recognized that you did that. Think about their poor wives and spouses.
I need everybody to stop what they're doing right now and share this because wow. So let's talk about the maybe the relationship dynamics. And I know you've mentioned already that a little bit with like parenting and children, but what if, like you said, what if husband is a
Yes.
narcissist? Like what are some of the warning signs?
Mm-hmm.
What can you look for
Yeah.
in your spouse? And I agree. I'd give it the pronoun he also because I think you're spot on with that. So
Uh,
tell us a little bit about that.
what it looks like in relationships is oftentimes a really like abusive environment in
Mm.
the way that it might not be physical abuse, it might not even be verbal abuse, but in the sense that it's very emotional, that everybody has to cater to that, to the dad or whoever the narcissist is. And when I say narcissist, I cringe because everybody uses that word so much. So think of
Hmm.
it like as a spectrum or a trait. When I say narcissist, I'm not talking about DSM personality diagnosis. That is the extremist version. But in our society, it can be more of like an injury. It can be more of like a full-blown trait. And so when you're in these relationships, it can be really confusing. Wives or spouses tend to cater. They tend to enable because they feel the fragility. They feel this grandiosity, but the defectiveness.
Hmm.
And as you kind of, I don't think many people would put words to this because it's not very safe. And what I'm about to say can feel very vulnerable. But in a narcissist, there is a very broken child inside of them. And consciously, I don't think we're aware of it. But as I have wives and spouses that come into my office, there is this bleeding heart inside of them to take care of the defective side. They don't ever want him to feel worse, but they feel that without really putting words to it. But at the same time, they're hurt by the grandiose side. Everything inside of them isn't listened to. Everything inside of them is never good enough. That what they
Mm.
do, there's always a mistake. Like, hey, you showed up late to the basketball game. Is everything okay? That the wife is just checking in, and husband immediately is like, everything's fine. Why would you ask me that? And in that moment, it becomes about them. There's no
Mhm.
mirror to see that person's caring for me. There's no recognition of that. It becomes me.
Mm.
Everything is me, 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 because they are in a way trying to protect the defective side through this very grandiose kind of part. So it becomes very one-sided. And you'll see the spouse who nothing they do is about them. It's always about that partner. And the kids kind of do the same thing. If they ever make a mistake, they will become criticized. And so they
Mm.
try to do the best they can to walk on eggshells, not make a mistake, not breathe the wrong way.
Mhm.
Because, and there's four kind of different types of narcissism, which I don't need to go into today. One can be very violent. And I think that's the one we think of often in our culture. Other ones can like be in a very self-shaming way, like in the sense of, oh, you got a promotion at work. Well, you got a promotion and I didn't because I guess it's easier in your world to kind of get promotions than mine. No one's ever noticed my work ethic, that I'm like really good. Like if only they like allowed me to become the boss, I would run this company and do a really good job. When the wife is just sharing that they had gotten a promotion at work.
Mm.
Can look like that instead of in this way that can kind of be very critical and demeaning and angry and very scary. It can be in a
Mhm.
shaming way that any of your achievements have to become about my lack of achievement. And if only I was recognized.
Mm.
Narciss-
So yeah, right. So what does the spouse do?
yeah,
If they're in that relationship with a narcissist,
yeah,
because man, you stepped into some deep waters right there.
yeah. Well, I want the spouse to even hear from like a clinician about how hard this is.
Hmm.
That it's not just living with them. As a therapist, I only see narcissisms usually in my office when something's gone wrong in their lives, like they've lost the job and the wife is separating and he's about to lose his family, and so they show up for therapy, but there's no recognition on his part that they're there because of his failure, his struggle. And narcissistic traits are actually one of the quickest fallouts of therapy. They're the least likely to follow through and continue to do therapy because they don't believe the issue is in themselves. The issue is everybody
Mm.
else. And so because of that piece, being married to somebody or in a relationship with them is very challenging. And currently the research shows that narcissism isn't curable, but it's treatable, that I can teach empathy, that as a therapist, like they need like a corrective emotional experience for that little boy, that little kid inside of them, which is
Mhm.
my job, not wife's job. It's the therapist's job, it's not wife's job. But really kind of what research really shows is run, leave, or it's the wife that's like, oh, but the Bible says, the Bible says, the Bible says, the Bible says, or in the sense of, I love them. I see who God made them to be, and they're just not this yet, and I'm going to hold on to it. That person, I would give the advice of lower your expectations and get a really good support system. Make
Mhm.
some really good godly friends who are the same sex. Do not ever have a confidant that is the opposite sex, unless like it's your pastor who is supporting you and there's like professional boundaries there.
Mhm.
But we don't ever want you to ever be in a position to have an emotional affair, because this is breeding ground for one.
Mhm.
So get a really good support system with same sex, same gendered friends. Have your family who can really come around you and support you and speak life, speak truth, speak the positive things that you are doing well. And this can kind of sound feminist, and I don't mean it that way, but in the sense of build your life, go to yoga, join a reading club, make some friends, build a career that isn't just to be a wife, because narcissisms tend to kind of be controlling. So you tend to have no access to finance, none of those things. And so whatever is safe for you, put yourself first for that moment. I always give this cheesy example, and it's so cheesy, Matthew, I'm not good at math, but biblically marriage, 1 times 1 is 1. And so if I have a half of a person times half of a person, it's a fourth of a marriage. And so I really want you to work on becoming the fullest version of yourself in the healthiest way that you can do that, whatever that looks like. If it's bubble baths, go for it. If it's reading a self-help book, I'm not against those, go for it. Lisa
Mhm.
First writes killer books, grab those, read them. I totally just plugged there, but she does a great job and she believes in therapy and all that. So go for it. Um, but really like investing into yourself. If you really feel like you don't have peace or the blessing of the Lord to leave, okay, but you don't have to stay the way that you have been.